Hello, everyone. My name is Jason Ramirez, and welcome to Season 4, Episode 2 of the Hit List Podcast, a podcast where me and a guest cross off films from our watch list by watching them. I'm joined today by another reaction YouTuber. We have Kendra from Black and Blue Tube on YouTube. Welcome, Kendra. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, for those of you who don't know about Kendra and her work, she and her sister, they do reaction videos like I just said. The one I watched that made me subscribe was when they reacted to Zack Snyder's Justice League. And that was a fun one. That was a really fun one. And the second one that I was like, okay, I like these two was Candyman, the old one. That was that was quite the rewatch because I felt the same thing like when I was watching that movie for the first time back in 2020 when I first started this podcast. So, Kendra, I have a couple questions for you before we get started. Whenever you sit down to watch a movie, do you choose something new or do you stick to your favorites? Like whenever you have downtime?
Nowadays I'm kind of ashamed to admit that I stick to my favorites. And especially now that I have the channel, it's kind of hard to just watch new things because I'm always like, oh man, I need to react to that. So it's usually like, oh, I'm in the mood to laugh. I want to watch Christmas Vacation. I don't know, because it's just something that I grew up with and I know it's going to make me laugh. Yeah, I know I can predict all the feelings I'm going to have. So there it is. Easy choice. Yeah.
There's no shame in that. Like, it can be a little annoying, like you catch yourself doing it, but if there's like a certain mood you want to feel, it's nice to put on like your favorites. Like, I said this on Twitter, and I'm gonna stand by it. Like, one of my favorite movies of all time that I'll rewatch any day is Rush Hour because I know exactly how it makes me feel every time I watch it. And I love Chris Tucker. I love Jackie Chan. Probably the greatest duo of the '90s, if I do say so myself. So, my second question for you is: if you wrote a book, what genre would you write in?
Horror. Without a doubt. It is one of my favorite genres of anything ever. I love books. I love suspenseful music. I love horror soundtracks. I love horror movies. I love being scared. I love everything about horror. So if I wrote a book, it would definitely be probably a ghost story because I love those.
I love it. I recently got into horror like a couple years ago because for the longest time I've been a scaredy cat, but now I'm truly starting to appreciate horror films and horror stories. There's a lot to
That's
it.
like the best reason to watch is because it's gonna scare you. I am a total scared cat. I'm so scared of the dark. I see things in the shadows. I believe in ghosts. And I watch that stuff because I love the adrenaline of like being scared out of my mind and my scalp is tingling and all that shit. I love it.
I like it because I like to pretend like I can fight it. But then we all know the person who thinks they can fight it is the one that dies first.
Oh man, you got to run. That's the first instinct. Run away, sir.
Oh, that actually reminds me, quick anecdote. Back in 2016, I was walking with some friends, we were out in the woods, and it was dark, right? We were just left the party, and this one kid, I don't want to say kid because we were all early 20s. He said yo, are there any clowns, any killer clowns that are happening out here? You guys run, I'll take care of it. And I'm like, wait, what?
Why would there be killer clowns there?
I'm not sure if you guys remember, back in 2016, there were a bunch of videos of clowns showing up on social media.
Oh my God, that's right.
I used to think it was because the It movie, the Stephen King's It was coming out the next year or the year before. I forgot what happened. And I thought that was just a viral campaign that just got out of hand. I'm still not sure why there were so many clowns, but he just said that. I'm like, dude, I don't know what experience you have with martial arts or fighting experience, but if there is a horror villain, I think our best option is to run.
You'll probably still die. I mean, sure, all right, die fighting, but I'm gonna die running. And about that clown thing, it is funny. I remember that I've been working in advertising for a long time, and when that started, we made a campaign out of it, and I think part of the research was that it was both. It was it is the thing that was just kind of happening. There was just like dudes dressed as clowns, like hanging out on street corners. But then it became sort of a viral thing. So more and more people started doing it just so that maybe somebody will catch me. I'm going to stand in these bushes for a few hours, you know? So yeah, that is funny because it was a crazy sort of thing that just mutated and got really bad for a while.
Yeah. 2016 was the time. It was the time. So the films we'll be discussing today have both recently been nominated for the 2022 Academy Awards. We have Spencer and Dune. So before we get into all that, I just want to list out the Academy Award nominations. So Spencer has won for Best Actress for Kristen Stewart. And that's her first one. I just saw that it's her first Academy Award nomination. I'm really proud of her because she did a really good job. She's a great actress.
She is.
For Dune, it got 10 Academy Award nominations, and I believe one of them was snubbed, and I'm a little mad at that. But, you know, for the other 10, that's really great to hear. So we have Best Picture, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Original Score, Best Costume Design, Best Sound, Best Film Editing, Best Makeup and Hairstyling, Best Cinematography, Best Production Design, Best Visual Effects. The one I think was snubbed was Best Director because you need someone in charge of all of that to make sure that's such a great film. But the fact that 10 Academy Award nominations.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah. Wow. And they're all well-deserved.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I saw this movie, and when I learned it was only $165 million in the budget, I was like, what?
Really?
Only $165 million in the budget. So that means Denis Villeneuve, the director, he knows how to spend the money.
He should have gotten something. He should have gotten a nomination.
Best guy to handle the budget.
I mean, that's all part of it, man. Like, a lot of directors are just like, whatever, my art. But I mean, to find a way to do something that looks so beautiful and is so well done within budget and on such a budget, I think is an accomplishment, serious accomplishment.
Great accomplishment. But first, we're going to talk about Spencer for this one real quick.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I got excited about Dune. Okay, Spencer, yeah.
So Spencer is a 2021 historical fiction psychological drama film directed by Pablo Larraín and written by Stephen Knight. The film is inspired by Princess Diana's decision to end her marriage to Prince Charles and leave the British family. Kristen Stewart and Jack Farthing star as Princess Diana and Prince Charles respectively, joined by Timothy Spall, Sean Harris, and Sally Hawkins. This film was on Kendra's list. Why was this film on your list, Kendra?
It was on my list because I have always, ever since I was a kid, been kind of enamored with Princess Diana. And I also have always really liked Kristen Stewart. I know that people judge her for her past, especially because of the role she played in Twilight and also because of, scandals she had with, Mr. Arpats. But I've always found her to be a pretty captivating actress, even when she was doing all that sputtering in Twilight. I found it was a bunch of girly sputtering, but it was convincing. Do you know what I mean? People overlook that. And I found her just as captivating in Spencer. I had a feeling that I would, and I just wanted to see what she was capable of. And I trusted that she would bring something to, because a lot of people, well, maybe not a lot, but a few people have played Princess Diana, and a lot of people have their ideas about who she was as a person. So I wanted to see what Kristen Stewart would do with a role like this and how she would choose to embody Diana. And I wasn't disappointed.
I will say I'm not too familiar with Princess Diana. I'm the type of guy that's like very democratic. I don't follow the royal families of any nation whatsoever. I'm an American. I'm about to no one, okay?
Fair enough.
Yeah, I remember when I was young, and one of Diana's sons got married. He was the first one who got married, and to Kate Middleton, I think that's her name.
Yeah.
And people were obsessed with that. There was so much coverage on that, the length of this dress. And I'm like, what is your obsession with this couple who has absolutely no power beyond being famous for titles that don't really have any power at all anymore? I can never understand it.
I don't blame you. I really don't.
And I've heard of documentaries. I've never seen documentaries of Princess Diana, and I know how she died, and I was very it was a tragic way to die, just horrible way to
Yeah, it
die.
was.
And beyond that, I have no context for her whatsoever. So that's why when
Mm.
I watched this film, I didn't even watch the trailer. I just knew it was about Princess Diana and Kristen Stewart was playing her. I was like watching the first few minutes, and like she's like driving somewhere, and I'm thinking like, does she have like security to do that for her? And like she's like really stressed out and that she didn't want to be at the Christmas party, whatever. I'm like, what is
Mhm.
going on here? And then later on, you get I kind of got the context, like, oh, okay, so she knows that her husband cheated on her. She's trying to like find out what to do next. I'm like, oh, okay, okay. But overall, what did you think of the film? Like, you already said you like Kristen Stewart's performance, but of the whole film, what'd you think?
I was pleasantly surprised. I didn't know how I would like the film because I agree with you. I was never obsessed with the royals, and the reason why I liked Diana is because she always seemed so different from them, and that's the reason why a lot of people were obsessed with her because she seemed unlike them, a genuine person and a person. She always seemed so damn sad. And when she died, so much came out about what she was going through behind the scenes, and you just kind of related to her even more. And so I think that in a lot of ways, Kristen Stewart could be compared to Princess Diana, not in the, oh, everyone loves her, but in the way that the scrutiny of the fans, the press of Hollywood can affect a person who is otherwise a genuine person and otherwise a person who might suffer a little bit under that scrutiny, who might, Diana just wanted to be in love with her husband, marry her husband, raise her children. She was going to take on the responsibility of, her role in that family, but then she experienced what it's actually like, and what it's actually like is what she said several times. She made several allusions to what it was like. I think at one point she compared herself to a mosquito in a petri dish or something, the way that she was being inspected and watched. And it was like one of the scenes where it was just a quiet little scene where like the servants are watching her on the news and they're like, oh, she wore the wrong outfit. And the way they talked about it was like, oh, she made a mistake, instead of, no, she just didn't feel like wearing that and decided to wear something else. Like, what the hell?
Exactly.
And constantly being under that pressure. And whenever you question that pressure, they act like you're crazy. Eventually, you're gonna go crazy. Because there's who else but her children did she have for comfort, for solace, to be genuine with, just to be her damn self with.
Hmm.
And that's why I fell in love with Diana, and that's why I really loved this movie, because they portrayed it in a very careful and a very genuine, but also kind of a creepy, there was a creepy sort of disturbing element to it when the music would change and it would turn into like
Yes.
that classic horror, like weird violin
Yeah.
music or
Yeah.
whatever. When she was under all that scrutiny, like, I don't know about you, but I have anxiety, so I can see the anxiety all through that girl, both in the actress and in the woman she's playing. And those moments where they're like so tight on her, and the music is going and everything, and she's like about to throw up because the pressure and the people are so much. Like, I've never been under so much pressure that I've developed bulimia, but
Mm.
I understand that anxiety and how scrutiny and pressure and the and people not allowing you to be yourself. I understand how that feels. So that's why I appreciated the movie. The cinematography was great. Everything looked beautiful. Everybody performed very well. But that is the real reason that I enjoyed that movie.
Gotcha. I will say, I didn't understand it was gonna be like a psychological take on this. They even said in the first screen, the first frame, it says a fable from a true tragedy. So
Mm.
it's not supposed to be factual at all. It's supposed to be like a fictional story based on what happened. And so like everything you see, we're not really sure if she saw hallucinations of like Anne Boleyn or whatever. We don't know. That's something that they just made up just for the fact of the story. So I really liked it as well. I didn't understand what was going on at first. I'm like, oh, okay, I get it now. So like when she was eating the pearls, I was like, oh, she's
Oh,
imagining it. I was like, ooh, ooh. There was one point when she's like going for like there's a scene in the film where it's like her past selves, right? And she's just like running for the hallways. I had no idea what was going. I even wrote down my notes. I don't know what's going on, but I really like it.
Yeah, yeah. It plays with your I don't know. It just fucks with your mind, man. And that's one of the reasons why I liked it. And I'm glad you brought it up, because I was going to say, like, this isn't like, it's not like they pulled these moments out of a book or something, or, heard her say, oh, I like to play a little game with my sons or whatever. I'm sure they did take bits and pieces of her real life and her biography and everything, but I loved that they took all of that, and instead of trying to tell some fussy, straightforward story about the tragedy of Princess Diana, they went for this psychological, disturbing kind of, anxiety-inducing angle that made it so much more interesting a watch to me. I was kind of afraid that it would be very dry and, very long, drawn-out scenes that went nowhere, and everybody's talking all quiet and shit. Which kind of happened, but I was so distracted by the atmosphere that they created that I didn't mind it.
Yeah, definitely. I could kind of feel some of that happening when they were all like saying to hush to themselves, like she's late or whatever. Like the beginning of the film, she's late. Oh, that's unusual. That means he will be late. Or like some stuff you'll see on like Downton Abbey or something like that.
Yeah, which I actually really love Downton Abbey.
I've never seen it, so I can't really say much about it. I can't really like make jokes about Downton Abbey because I've never seen it, but that's what it would feel like it would have been, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was like, oh, okay, it looks like I'm gonna watch like one of those PBS specials.
Yeah, I thought I was gonna be in for one of those. Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, which I've never actually watched one. It was always something like, because those are like public broadcasting station. I think that's the full initial name.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's available on every TV throughout the country, and whenever your parents don't have the means to have cable, that's usually something you'll watch, like PBS Kids. I'm not ashamed to say I watched Arthur. I loved Arthur. But it reached a certain hour. I think at 12 p.m. That's when they stopped showing the kids shows and start showing stuff aimed more for adults. Those like old British dramas always like show up. I'm like, oh, come on, man.
I'm not gonna lie. They used to have like these old British comedies that, for whatever reason, when I was a kid, I used to watch like late at night. It would be like, what was it? Are you being served? And like just these old weird ass British comedies. And for whatever reason, I was kind of fascinated with them for a little while when I was a kid. So I am like familiar with that kind of like brown Britishness, so I thought like I was going to be in store for that, but it was actually a beautifully lush film, which helped, because I love that kind of shit. Like that really gets my engine revving. If something is beautiful to look at, that was one of the reasons I loved Zack Snyder's Justice League, because the man just filled the screen with so much for my eyes. It was gorgeous. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Quick note about that. I don't want to say I'm really pissed about it, but I'm frustrated that didn't get a nomination for visual effects, because Steppenwolf looked amazing. Like if you see, not even just like compared to like the 2017 version, but like just the suit of armor that he had on was amazing to look at.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was really cool.
But no, I went to Spider-Man instead, which I have words to say about that movie. But I'm not gonna discuss it. I'm not gonna discuss it. Well, let me just say, like, Jimmy Kimmel said some comments, like I think yesterday or whatever, that my friend pointed out to me, that like, why didn't Spider-Man get more nominations or whatever? It earned this much money, it has all this like percentage on Rotten Tomatoes. And I want to say this. The Academy Awards, to nominate a film, it doesn't have to be successful in the box office. It has to be a great film. And there have been times where like they will like put a popular movie up there, but there are reasons why. And I think they put No Way Home up there because they want like those Marvel stands to like watch the Academy Awards, because like the Academy Awards has been going down in viewership for a very long time. I mean, that's all I'm gonna say about it.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with you at all. And that's all I'll say about it. I am not disagreeing with you at all. The Academy Awards have definitely jumped the shark to sound like an old lady.
So let's talk about, there's a lot of fashion in this in this film, as we discussed. Like she had like dresses to choose from. What was your favorite dress, or like what was your favorite outfit?
To be perfectly honest, that getup that she was wearing, well, I really liked the one that she was wearing when she ate those pearls. I know she hated it, but I just love that color. But I also really, really love that outfit she was wearing at the beginning of the movie. That was actually an outfit that signaled to me, okay, so there's gonna be fashion, and I'm going to love it. And just the way that it fit on her and everything about it, like the coat and the skirt and everything, I was like, damn, I want that outfit. I wanted most of what she wore, but like, I don't know, that was just one of my favorites because I could definitely see that being like functional and like, everything else was very extravagant and, they're very rich people. So I would be afraid that I would like get some fucking weed resin on it or something. You know what I'm saying? But that outfit, that looked like it was functional. So that was one of the reasons why it was my favorite.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'll say mine is the one where she went to church in. Like it was the red and the black. Like
yeah, really
I saw so many posters for it, and I saw it in person. I didn't say it in person, but like saw it on screen. It just looked so elegant. It just looked amazing.
It does.
The costume designer for this, let me see, what was her name again? I have it written down. Jacqueline Duran, who's a costume designer. All the outfits to her in the film aren't necessarily accurate to like what she actually wore in real life. They're like more inspired than anything else. And also some other facts about the film is that Chanel, like the fashion brand, got involved with the film and like gave them like 4 outfits for them to use in the film. Some stuff from the archives, essentially.
Nice. I wonder if one of those was the church outfit because it looked very. I'm not like I'm a fashion person. Please, God, fashion people out there listening, don't like send me hate mail. But it looked kind of Chanel-y. It looked like it could have come from Chanel because it was gorgeous. Someone who I really appreciated seeing was Timothy Spalding. I just really like him. I like it when he shows up. I've only seen him in like, fun stuff like Harry Potter and, Ever After and stuff like that.
He was the page, right?
Yeah, and Ever After.
Yeah. He was great. He was really good. Like he had a job to do. He made sure he did his job,
Yeah.
What were some things you found weird in this film? Beyond like the pearl eating stuff.
Well, I kind of found her behavior a little weird. I found some of her responses to the situation she was in a little weird because I guess just because we're just different people. And not that, of course, Diana herself actually did that, but the way that they chose to portray it and even the way that Kristen performed it, like when she was like, I gotta masturbate. I was like, I mean, I know you were trying to get the lady out of the room or whatever, but could you like come up with something else? And like, the way she would choose to sort of make little comparisons instead of just coming out and saying, you guys are fucking killing me. You're stifling me too much. I need to be free. She would say, oh, I feel like an insect in a petri dish, and it's, and she only really, and she didn't even really, not that I guess you would because they're children. She didn't even really truly tell her children the whole truth. She just took comfort and solace in them. And me personally, they'd have had to just kick me out. They'd have just had to just kick me out of there and just went on about their business because I would not have been able to abide it. I would have taken my kids and gotten the hell out of there, So I just found some of her behavior I just found odd, and it didn't help that in those moments that creepy ass music would creep up into it. It just made it all the more creepy. And it's I'll tell you one thing, it just definitely convinced me that whatever people think about being a royal or whatever, like, no, the answer to that is no. Beware.
Yeah.
For real.
It's a lot of responsibility and like keeping up with looks from what I can tell. And something I found weird was the tradition of weighing the people before.
Oh yeah, that was fucking weird.
Yeah, I think that was made up for the film. I didn't see anything like where that's factually correct or whatever. But even then, it sounds like it's something that they did back then, like way back when. But that's such a weird thing to like do. Like, did you really enjoy your Christmas dinner? We don't know because you didn't gain 3 pounds at minimum. I'm like, what? Excuse me.
I believe it could be a joke somebody told, but then to actually make it a tradition and to keep that tradition for like however many 100 years or whatever. And you like make people do it. You like make people do it. If it was made up, what it demonstrates to me about the Royals is pitch perfect, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like the conversation, like someone just said it offhandedly while they're drunk, like, yeah, like only way we could tell if people really enjoyed the dinner is if they gained 3 pounds or whatever, and then the next year they do it. I'm like, hey, it was your idea. No, dude, I was joking. I was 3 drinks deep.
Oh, it's too late now. It's a tradition. Can't go back.
So we talk about her sons and like how she found solace with them. So I found it very sweet, very cute when she was playing the soldier game with them. It's like, Soldier, what's the best part of Christmas? Best part is the family. Soldier, I said tell the truth.
They were so sweet. I really appreciated seeing that because that, her relationship with her sons is something that, of course, is factually true and kind of like one of the most known things about her and them. And so that scene for me in particular, did I cry? I might have cried. And then I love later when like the gift she gave them, like it was like, I just got them at the petrol station. And I just thought that was so cute because silly things like that was what held them together and like kept them real and kept them, she made sure that she kept her children grounded in at least one real relationship, because everybody else around them, it seemed, only expected them to just behave with, tradition. So I just really appreciated seeing it. And that she made me cry because damn. Well, I don't know about you, but I have like a really, really close relationship with my mother, and I'm a twin, of course. And so we growing up had that kind of, we didn't play soldier games or whatever, but we did talk to her a lot. We shared a lot with her. And so I just, me personally, I'm very much connected with that. Everybody has something that they can appreciate. I think in a movie like this, it's not for everybody.
Definitely not.
But I certainly think if you are a person who appreciates film, at the very least, there's something to appreciate about this film. It's surprising to me in a way.
Yeah, it's great. And we also mentioned the music.
Yes.
It's so tense. You're like, holy crap. And also the thing about this movie that someone pointed out is if her sons weren't there, this would have been a full-on horror movie.
Yeah.
If her sons weren't there, because she would have no support system, no people to confide in, whatever. She even told her son, like, if I'm acting a little silly, please let me know.
Because you'll be the only person. Yeah. Yeah. That part really, really struck me because I was like, damn, that's true. There's the only 2 people she can trust is, and really, actually, it's just the oldest, really, because the youngest is young. Like she would probably be throwing up and throwing herself down the hall, hallucinating her past selves like the whole freaking time. I'm so glad that she had them in real life and in the movie, because in a movie like that, like it can't be tension the whole damn time. There has to be some relief somewhere. So I'm glad that there were some quiet moments and there were some moments that were sweet and tender and her away from all of that, because it really needed, truly.
So the music is changed at the end, and that's something I really appreciate about the music, because throughout the whole film, it's tension. It feels like something's about to creep out around the other corner or whatever. It feels like something's going to happen, and stuff does happen. But the reason I felt the tone changed was because of the music changed. So at the end, they play a song from like the 80s, All I Need Is a Miracle. And it felt like a teenager coming of age story, because she's rebelling against him. She's like, screw this, I'm leaving, I'm out, taking my kids, we're going out. I'm taking the convertible, we're going to KFC. Okay, we're going to KFC. Even the edits were like cut fast, because before it was like they'll like hold on people, they'll hold on her face or whatever. But this time you can see like things happening really fast. Like you can even see the queen looking down on what's his name, Prince Charles or whatever. Like, yeah, what happened?
Yeah, it felt like what is that movie that I think Francis Coppola, the Coppola daughter, and it was about the girl who got her head chopped off, the chick, and it had Kristen Dunst. Anyway, it was about what is the chick? Marie Antoinette. It was about Marie Antoinette. It felt kind of like that. And I agree with you, yeah. And actually, to be honest with you, I didn't even like notice because I was so fascinated with what was going on, and I was just so, by that time I was just so ready for like relief. I was just like happy that it was happening. But I'm glad you brought it up because that I agree with you. But anyway, but yeah, I totally agree with you. That was a really awesome to see, and I don't know if that actually happened like that, but it made me nevertheless happy that Princess Diana could have maybe possibly had a moment like that. But anyway, and it was a good way to end things, because yeah, you're right. The from the moment the movie started, the tension just kept ramping up until it broke. And I think, of course, that was the point. Like they were pushing her out the door the whole time since the moment she got there.
Kendra, can you tell me any final thoughts you had on the film?
Yeah, I really hope Kristen Stewart wins. I really do. I think she deserves it. I don't think I've seen her in a few movies, and I don't think I've seen her quite this good. I think she's gotten better with each role that she's taken, and I think she deserved that nomination. I you asked me about the costuming yesterday, and I was like so spaced out that I was like, oh yeah, whatever. And I'm not like, don't get me wrong, I'm not like a fashion chick. I'm not well versed at all. I honestly don't really care, but I think she looked damn good in everything she wore. And I forgot to mention that white dress that's on the cover of the
yes,
it's like on the cover of the movie, and like she ran to her old house and almost died in the damn thing. But it was just so, I loved it because it was so it remained so gorgeous through all the mud and the darkness and the dankness and all that trouble and turmoil that she was in. That dress was just stunning. And that was one of the things about the way the film was shot and the quality of the cinematography and I would love to hear more about this director of photography, because the lighting and everything was just beautiful. It was all just very beautiful.
Definitely. And 2 notes about like just in costume design. Kristen Stewart, she's not that tall of a person, but Princess Diana was. So they had to like accentuate her dresses, her costume to make her look taller. And that'll mean like making some of the sleeves longer, moving her hips up upwards a little bit. A lot of stuff that I'm not too familiar with. I didn't even notice that at first. It's something that I didn't care about, but that's something that they put more detail in, that they cared about enough to like put that in there. And I really appreciate them for that dedication. It's just the small things like that shows how much dedication there was to this film. And also that white dress, the one that's on the poster, that was one of the dresses that was provided by Chanel. And I thought that was like really cool.
Yeah, that definitely looks like a Chanel-y. It's a Chanel-y looking dress. And yeah, I do appreciate the way they draped her body, because she did look taller. And I also noticed that I could see that Kristen did things with her body herself to make herself look a little ganglier and taller than she actually is, just sort of like exaggerating her, the way she would like sink her head into her shoulders and stuff like a tall person would. I just loved what she did, and the costuming too. Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Definitely. It's something that I'm also a tall person. I don't notice that I do that myself. I kind of shrink myself for other people because I come from a Latino family and everyone else is short and I'm like the only exception. And then I'll go for like school like, Jason, why are you so tall? And I'm like, I don't even know, man. I didn't even notice, okay? Why are you guys so short? Why are you 5'1"?
I love being tall.
I'm sorry, I'm a full head taller than you, okay? You don't need to like project saying like, how's the weather up there? It's pretty nice up here, okay? It's pretty nice.
How tall are you?
I'm 6'1". It's like it's tall. It's like not that tall.
That is tall. That's taller than the average man, and I'm 5'11", and so I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm taller than most of the women that I meet. It's so I totally get you. I love being able to reach up, grab things so easily. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you ever just say you're 6 feet? Because like it's like 1 inch.
I want to cheat. I really want to cheat. My hair could probably make up for it, actually, now that I think about it. I probably could cheat if I wanted to. But no, I'm going to be honest. It's fine.
Yeah, and as far as like the production for Spencer, so on June 17th, 2020, it was announced that Pablo Larraín, I don't know how to pronounce his name. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. It's Larraín?
Sure.
Larraín? So,
I cannot roll my tongue. Yep.
Pablo will direct Spencer, and it will star Kristen Stewart as Princess Diana. And so it took place over 38 shooting days from January 28th to March 29th, 2021. And it's a chiefly location-based shoot, and as you can tell, it really adds more depth to the film.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it would have had the same effect if it was like a studio film. A good majority of shots were outside, and a good majority were inside. They knew what they were doing, essentially. They did a great job of all that.
Yeah, they didn't waste any of that. It was all very beautiful, but also at the same time very claustrophobic,
yes.
Which the film absolutely needed to work the way that they wanted to portray it. So I'm glad that they went the way it did. And actually, yeah, I think the quality of it probably would have been a little lost if it was like a major studio film.
Yeah, and that's something that's Pablo is known for, like making it claustrophobic, like focus on the face, extreme close-ups. He's done another biopic. I think I forgot the name of it, but it's about Jackie Kennedy, like days after John F. Kennedy died.
Oh, right. That's right.
He did that one.
I should watch that. Now I want to watch it because I wasn't really interested in it when it came out.
Me neither until this. It's like he knows how to make a good film. He knows what he's doing. And as far as like the locations, I got like, so the way I do my notes, I put them in slideshows instead of like a huge document because it keeps track of everything. I have 4 slides just dedicated to locations. So I don't know how to pronounce some of these because it's like German. First one, it was Nordkirchen Castle in North Rhine-Westphalia, which was one of the main locations for Spencer. It's the 16th century palace serving as the interior and exterior of Sandringham, which, like, you know, that's where like the royals were having their Christmas party. It's known as the Versailles of Westphalia. The other one, which I'm gonna have a harder time saying, the Schlosshotel Kronberg, which translates to Castle Hotel Kronberg near Frankfurt, also doubles as Sandringham in the movie.
Wow, so they shot in Germany. That's interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. And like I thought they would shoot in like Britain or whatever, but they're thinking about it. I'm like, how would they gotten the castle from the royal family to shoot their stuff when it's not? It doesn't show them in a good light at all.
Also true, yeah. But I mean, it's all, you know, European architecture and shit. So like, what American really is going to be able to tell? I could tell.
No, that's funny because quick anecdote as well. I was in Denmark back in like towards the end of 2019, and it was like during Christmas time. It was like November, but it was like Christmas markets all over the place, and the people could tell I was Hispanic, even though we're all white. Like I had to admit that I'm white, unfortunately, because I have Spanish genes. But the people who could tell were all European. People who couldn't tell were like American for some reason. They couldn't tell I wasn't.
You know, no, that makes sense.
It's so funny because like the reason they could tell is because of my hair.
Yeah.
And I was walking throughout this Christmas market, and there was like this woman selling fudge because apparently like a lot of people from Spain will like go over to Denmark to like sell stuff at Christmas markets. I noticed a lot of that happening, and this woman called out to me in Spanish. It's like, venite para aquí, tenemos esto para usted. I'm like, I say back to her, ¿Cómo sabía? Like, how did you know? How did you know I was like a Latino? Like, she's like, you look like one.
It's really awesome. At least you had somebody there. When I was in Germany, there was not nobody around, and I stood out like a sore thumb, and I had a mohawk at the time. God, it was a great trip, but I definitely attracted attention wherever I went.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, I made more friends with the locals than I did with the other travelers for some reason.
They're friendly.
Like I heard American accents. I'm like, Americans, finally. I someone I could talk to. And it was like a group of 3 girls like, hey, I'm also American. Nice to meet you. They just shrugged me off. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Nah, man. The locals are very friendly there.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Speaking of like food, the KFC where they go to at the end of the film.
Uh-huh.
So that was in London, River Thames. That's where they shot that, and I thought, and it's kind of based on real life as well because she was known to take her sons out for fast food, and former royal chef Darren McGrady told Marie Claire, "I remember the princess came into the kitchen one day and said, 'Cancel lunch for the boys. I'm taking them out. We're going to McDonald's,'" which is just such a normal mom thing to do,
Yeah.
you know.
That's all she wanted. She just wanted to be a mom. And, what was that scene where he was like, "Oh, I thought you realized." And it's like, nah, man, nah, bro. You straight up didn't tell her. She always just wanted to be in love with her damn husband and raise her damn kids. And the thing about the KFC thing, in London, they're every freaking where. They love KFC in London. I don't know why they're so obsessed with KFC, but they love that fried chicken. And it's that, and it's God, what is it called? It's some kind of, well, they also really love Indian food,
Right.
but there's some kind of very specific type of food that they love that I can't really remember right now. But yeah, KFC's on every damn corner.
It's like meat based.
It is, but maybe I'm getting it mixed up with Germany, which really loves what they call doner kebab, which is just like street kebabs. It's just like street meat, I guess, if you've ever been to New York. So I might be getting the two mixed up, but definitely the KFC thing was quite familiar and very entertaining, and it does seem like something that she would do.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I went to 7-Eleven in Denmark as well.
Mm-hmm.
I was so mad that their 7-Eleven was so much better than the one we have here. I was so mad. Like they had like pastries. Oh man, pastries and like those like pastries with like hot dogs inside. They're officially called pigs in a blanket, but but it was better. It was more. It was like an artisan craft of like this making this food, and I was like, it was like fresh daily. I'm like, what? Excuse me? Why do they have this so much better than over there? Everything's like manufactured at 7-Eleven. You know exactly what you're going to get. You can expect it to be manufactured. Even like the donuts and the pastries, you can expect that to come from a factory. But there, I was like, why is this fresh?
I don't know. I guess that's why chefs love to travel, because as much as American food can be really good and delicious, we've definitely gotten so lazy and we're just so into mass production of everything. It's kind of sad. It's really kind of sad.
Also, the Little Caesars, not in Denmark, but in Honduras. I went to Honduras last summer to celebrate my birthday. That's where my mom's family is from. And we went to Little Caesars, and I was like, is this really like the best place to go? We have Little Caesars at home. And that pizza was probably like the best pizza I had in a while. And it was like, they actually made it there. And I was like, so mad at that too. Like, why does the Little Caesars why does Little Caesars America taste like cardboard and this one tastes like close to Italian pizza?
Yeah.
It was like, what is going on here?
I don't know.
I might just move to the Tegucigalpa just for Little Caesars.
I don't know what that is about America and its dependence on processed crap food. I really don't know. I wish it wasn't like that.
It's crazy. So the last two locations, well, not last two, last three. So St. Peter and St. Paul's Church in Norfolk was the filming location for the Christmas Day service in Spencer, in the scene where she's like watching Carmilla and Charles laugh together outside the church. And it was also one church for the interior and one church for the exterior. That's how they did it. And Huntington Beach was like for the beach scene. And it's just 5 miles from the real life Sandringham estate.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, those are a few locations that they had for the film. As someone who's watched a lot of films, I've noticed that stuff from like early 2000s, even especially in the 90s and whatever, I've noticed that a lot of them are like location based. And as we kind of move forward from like mid to late 2000s up till now, it's a lot studio based. But that might just be like a bias because I've been watching a lot of big blockbuster movies. But even for like stuff like Spider-Man, if you remember from like 2000 Spider-Man, they shot at New York. And for the most recent one, you can kind of tell it's all shot in a studio.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. They did. And that was, actually, it's a plan of mine to go back and rewatch those first three Spider-Men for the channel because it's been so long. I don't think I've seen them since they first came out. But yeah, you're right. They did use a lot of real location shots in that movie. And yeah, you're right. A lot of the stuff, almost everything that studios like Marvel and Warner Bros. And them have been pumping out is all fucking green, blue. I don't know, fucking pink. I don't know what they use anymore. But and I was actually just watching behind the scenes on like the Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett and stuff like that, and like, they're all very proud of the technology that they're developing and stuff in order to help them tell these stories, but it's all fake. None of it is, they make it look really good. They do, but none of it is real, and that also kind of makes me sad.
Yeah. And this isn't like we hate special effects. No, we love it. It's advanced so much since like over the past 20 years. Just in the past 10 years, it's advanced. Okay. But over 20 years, it's advanced pretty well. It's just like the over-reliance on it can like really dampen it.
Yeah.
And there are some movies who do it very well, and there's some movies who don't do it too well. And it just kind of takes you out of the experience of the film.
Really
and the films that do it very well, that's actually the next film we're going to talk about. We're going to get right to it real quick.
Yes.
And now a word from our sponsors. Now back to the show.
Dune is a 2021 American epic science fiction film directed by Denis Villeneuve and written by Villeneuve, John Spates, and Eric Roth. It is the first of a two-part adaptation of the 1965 novel by Frank Herbert, primarily covering the first half of the book. Set in the far future, it follows Paul Atreides as his family, the noble House Atreides, is thrust into a war for the deadly and inhospitable desert planet Arrakis. The ensemble cast includes Timothée Chalamet, Rebecca Ferguson, Oscar Isaac, Josh Brolin, Jason Momoa, Zendaya, Javier Bardem, and so many more. And this film was on both of our lists. Jason, what did you think?
So, I will say, I stalled from watching this movie because it had such a huge ensemble cast. And I have this prejudice against like ensemble cast because either they're really, really good, like Prince of Egypt, or they're terrible. Like, I can't think of a film, but there are movies where like they have an ensemble cast and they're just terrible. And the reason they have so many celebrities in it is because they know they'll sell. This one, I am very happy to say, is now one of my new favorite movies. It's very good. I love it. And I had one of my friends who's been in the podcast as well. His name's Zekiel. He told me when we were recording our New Year's Eve special for this year, he said, "You haven't seen Dune? Dude, you're like the one dude I would expect to watch Dune who would like corner me in a party and talk about Dune for 3 hours." I'm like, "I know, man, I know. I just haven't seen it yet." And so when you suggested we watch it, I was like, you know what? Fine. Let's we might as well get to it. And one of my friends, Edmi, she really liked the movie as well, and I trust her opinion on films as well. So like, let's watch it.
Cool.
And yeah, it's great. What did you think?
I also really, really loved it. I was riveted from the moment that it started, and I also had hesitated in watching it. Because I kind of agree. There's something about these big budget, big production ensemble films that can just be a little bit, been there, done that to me. I remember I really didn't want to watch like the most recent Mad Max Fury Road because I was like, oh, well, it's just gonna be, I know it's gonna be, but I actually ended up really loving it. And also because actors like Timothée Chalamet is like one of those of the moment actors. And I have this visceral sort of reaction to being pushed into being a fan of someone just because they want him to be like the new thing. But I was completely surprised and blown away by not only the caliber of his acting, but I really, really enjoyed this damn movie. I just loved this movie so much. That was such a pleasant surprise. I was not expecting that.
Definitely. I think I told you before we recorded, I had a film professor who also has his own podcast. And also real quick tip about him. I said he writes down like notes on legal pad. I forgot to mention that he doesn't have slides. He's a very, I don't want to say very old man, but he's
a little bit analog.
He's lived many years on this earth. Yeah, he's very analog. Yeah. And he hasn't really adapted well to like technology. So when I took his course like a few years ago, he wouldn't have slides ready. He'll write down notes on the chalkboard and tell us like point by point what it was. It'll take like 15 minutes at the beginning of class. And it was like a pretty long class anyway. And we will leave early anyway. But that was what he'll do. And it wasn't just like a typical chalkboard you see in a classroom in elementary school. It's like one of those like, how do you say, lecture hall chalkboards. And he'd fill it up. Yeah, so anyway, in the podcast, he talked about Dune. And he said this is like Star Wars for adults. And I was like, yeah, it's pretty right. Because there's politics, there's intrigue. And there's a lot of spectacle that you would want to see in a space film like this. There's so much going on. So much more depth. And I don't want to say Game of Thrones in space, because Game of Thrones ended up sucking anyway. But the good stuff of Game of Thrones are in here, because there's like political going-ons. There's stuff like they're preparing for war, but they have to do their duty. Yeah, it's. I even said this to myself. It's like the cool concept art you see online come to life on the big screen.
That's a great way of putting it. Yes, that's kind of how I felt. I felt like I was in, oh my God, I'm totally going to, people are going to be like, ew, dork. But I do go on Tumblr on occasion because I like myself a nice gift set. I like to look at pretty things. So, yes, I felt like I was in a gift set.
So basically you like going to Tumblr and like these cool gift sets. Is that what you get your inspiration from, I guess?
You could say so. I only really like to, I mean, you can't really engage with people on Tumblr. It's like a mess. But I do like the artists that are on there. There's a lot of people who make these things, and I use it for visual inspiration when I'm writing. I use it for, aesthetically how I want to handle some things in my channel. I'm like really into the cyberpunk aesthetic thing. I like neon and all that shit. So yeah, I just love beautiful things, and that was one of the first things that struck me about this film, is it was gorgeous.
Definitely like the scope and the scale of like the ships and everything, and just the sandworm. That's what scared me as well. Oh man,
my God,
because I didn't take it seriously, because like stuff similar to that, like Tremors, like the movie Tremors, if you remember, with Kevin Bacon. I never really took it seriously because that's such a silly film, But with this, they really showed how dangerous and how grand the sandworm is. It's like, oh, you can't walk normally. You had to do a little dance.
I loved that. I could feel that, like the way they showed the ground, like first sinking and then like wobbling. And I could feel them struggling to move through that. I loved that scene, and I love little details like that. And the thing that I also really loved about the worm is that it was huge, but it didn't look fake. Like I wasn't distracted by the CGI of it all. I was just seriously invested in what was happening. So I really appreciate that.
And I mentioned this to you earlier as well, that I was surprised that this film only cost them, the budget was only $165 million. And it looks like it could have been like close to $500 million film.
I know James Cameron was like, damn it. How did you do that?
He's still working on the Avatar series. It's been 13 years. Wow. Wait. It started in 2009. It's 2022 now. So that's 13 years.
I don't know what he's doing, man.
I really like James Cameron, and I want him to do well. I want the new films to do well. I haven't seen Avatar in a very long time, but it did make a lot of money when it premiered. So it really struck a chord with a lot of people when it premiered. and it had like a lot of groundbreaking 3D, groundbreaking visual effects and whatnot.
Yeah, I liked it, and James Cameron's directed some of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah, I want to see Avatar 2, but all the news I've heard about it, it's just like, it's been delayed by another 2 years. Oof. What's new? What else is new?
Yeah.
And it's crazy to think about this, because I must have been 13 when Avatar first came out. And guess what? It's been 13 years since it came out.
Ooh.
So that means another 13-year-old kid might be able to see it soon.
Maybe.
Yeah, right? It's like...
Maybe. I don't know what, like I said, I don't know what he's doing, but I hope when it's done and that it's really good.
Yeah.
I feel like it needs to be.
Definitely. So what were your favorite scenes in Dune?
Oh my God. Okay. I can't even. There's so many. Okay. Well, I'll say that my first, oh my God, there's just so many. Okay. So I think my first favorite scene, and the scene that made me appreciate Timothy Chalamet, was when he was getting the test from the witch lady and he had to put his hand in the box. The way that he performed that scene, I was like, okay, little man, okay, I see you, and I respect what you're doing, sir. So that was a really well-performed scene. And even, I'm not remembering her name, but the woman who played his mother, her performance throughout that scene was also one of the reasons that made it a really, really good scene. And that fucking scene when Oscar Isaac was dying and he was waiting to kill the Baron. Yo. I'm getting chills now. It was so good. I was just sitting here just staring. I'm thinking that I might have to just do a recap and review, because like the footage from my reaction is mostly me just like, just like staring at the screen, because it was just so damn good. I really love that. And of course, I will go ahead and go towards the end where he had to fight the guy from the Freyan tribe. Fremen, sorry. Oops. And at first you think, oh, this guy's going to be an ally, he's supposed to guide him or whatever. And then you realize, no, he's got to fight him to the fucking death. Like, what? I did not see that coming. And then the whole thing about, oh, he's never taken a life. And the way that he, again, Timothy Chalamet doing his acting thing, the way he performed, having to kill that man after he thought he was supposed to be his guy. Like, I just really, really liked that stuff. Like, I know a lot of people are going to be in love with like the epic scope and the battle and the war and Jason Momoa's big battle scene he had and everything, but I'm obsessed with performance. I'm obsessed with give me something that's going to make me really, really empathize with this character. And so those are the three moments I think that really sealed the deal for me.
Definitely. And especially that part with the Baron. You can see how the Baron is still scared of this man, even though this man is supposedly dying. Like, he can't move at all, can't move his body, and he still puts the Holtzman shield on. And he had every reason to, because he killed everyone in that room. Everyone. I
was like, is he gonna get him? I don't know if he's gonna get him. But he did his damnedest. And as much as I hate the Baron, it is very impressive that he survived.
Yeah, very.
Speaking of the Baron, like, what is his name? Is it Stellan Skarsgård or Peter Sarsgaard? I love him. He's a really good actor. But anyway, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I will say that's one of my favorite scenes as well, the Baron. My other one is the training, where he's training with Josh Brolin's character. I think it's Gurney. He's training with him, and it's like, at first it's training, and then he says, I'm just not in the mood right now. And that gets him mad, like, mood? Does this have to do with mood? And like, that's when like he starts to like put more elements of like a real fight into it. And that was like a really good fight, because not good fight, good scene, because he was just telling him, like, you don't understand, this is life or death right here. You don't know the situation. I don't think you understand the grand scope of the situation we're in, but you have to be prepared for whatever happens right here. And when he says, you've never met what do they call this, The
Child, I cannot remember, but they are brutal. But the Harkin shits, yes. Oh,
he's
Harkonnen.
Yeah. He's like, you never met the Harkonnen. They're brutal. And like the way he said brutal, I'm like, oh, this man's scared of them.
Yeah, you can always count on Josh Brolin.
Thanos is scared of the Harkonnen.
Yeah, that was a really amazing scene. And the progression of it, where he's just like, in the mood, because Jason Momoa's character is probably just soft on him and lets him like fuck around, and and Josh Brolin was like, no. These people chop heads and slice and dice, and they'll blow your little ass up. You better fucking get ready, boy. Yeah, I loved that.
Yeah, a couple other my scenes as well. I really like the martial arts in this as well, because a lot of this I've trained in as well. I've trained in Kali, and this was Kali in here as well. It was a specific type.
Oh.
Balit Nawak. So that's why I was really, even like the salute was something that we do at the end of like training. So
really? I thought they just made that up. I was impressed by the fighting, and I don't even really usually give a shit about that kind of stuff. But yeah, I really loved the fighting style. I didn't realize that was based on a real thing. That's cool.
Yeah, it's Filipino stick fighting. There's like several, because it's like islands, so like each island had like their own method. There's like Arnis, there's Kali, there's Sinawali, but they're all kind of like come from the same family. And I don't have too much experience in it, so if someone's like getting pissed off at me, like, hey, it's specifically this, I'm like, okay, but you get the general idea of what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So Denis Villeneuve, he even said this in like interviews, since they have the Holtzman shield, guns can't work on them. It has to be slow moving objects, so like when they get the knife in, they can like kill them. So it's mostly about like playing chess. You do all these quick movements, try to get them distracted, and then you go in for the kill. So that's their strategy for like killing them.
And I can see that in the style,
Yeah, so when what's his name? He has Gurney on the floor for like the training. He's like, I got you. No, but you would have gone as well.
Oh yeah. You know what that kind of reminded me of? What was that? I'm about 99.9% sure that you've seen the Dark Knight trilogy.
Yeah.
Okay. So like when he's getting trained by like Ra's al Ghul or whatever in the beginning, and he's like, oh, you're gonna risk sure footing for whatever. That kind of reminded me of that scene where like he thinks he's got him, but he like doesn't. And I was just like, oh yeah, because there's gonna be a moment. I know there's gonna be a moment where that's gonna come in freaking handy. And maybe I'm wrong, but I think it did actually come when he was fighting the guy. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But anyway, I really love that.
Are you still talking about Batman Begins?
No. No. I transitioned. I was like, if they bring up this move, I got you. It's got to come back. Gotcha. And maybe I'm wrong because my memory is shit, but I feel like it did come back. They did it. It's got to come back.
I think the principle of like the training translated into like when he fought that guy to the death. The principle.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Okay.
Well, okay, so the principle of it, but there's there's always going to be that moment where what he's been training for has to like come to fruition, and that was kind of the moment, because everybody's like, oh, he's the best Fremen fighter. What is it? Fremen.
Because I think I watched it with subtitles, so it's kind of like Freeman, but one E taken away, so it's Fremen.
Oh, okay. So he's the best Fremen fighter, but this guy's Paul has had his training, and they were not expecting that, I will say. And that's, I guess, for me, when the moment came to fruition. But anyway,
that's something they also teach in martial arts. Like they say, like you never want to get in a fight, in a street fight, because one, you don't know how good the other person is, or they might bring friends over and they'll beat you up anyway. Or two, they don't know what they're doing, and they're even more dangerous because they don't know if they're gonna hurt themselves or hurt you even more. You're not gonna expect something from them. So that was like a mistake on the Fremen part, because they also, like the other guy, the leader, he didn't expect. I think her name is Jessica in the film, Rebecca Ferguson's character, the mom. They didn't expect her to know how to fight. And she knew, and she's like, okay, we were wrong. That's our bad.
Yeah, and I had a feeling that something like that was gonna happen. Oh, another thing, I'm so excited. I might be getting ahead of myself, but another thing I really loved was the voice whenever they use that voice
Oh,
shit.
the voice. Oh man.
I don't know how they did it in the original movie, but how they did it here, I just loved.
There's so many things that happen in this movie that I've totally forgot about the voice. I totally forgot about it. Even though it's an essential part of the film, it's an essential part of the story that Paul can do this. Because like that whole tribe of women that like work with the shadows, it's all women. There's no men.
Mm-hmm.
And he was born as like a male, whatever, because his mother decides to like have him as a male. That was her choice to do it. They thought she was getting ahead of herself because of the prophecy or whatever. She just took it upon herself. And so I totally forgot the voice. I just thinking about like the story, the fight scenes, the ornithomopter, that's what they're called, the helicopter that flaps its wings like a hummingbird. Yeah, just everything about this movie is just like so cool. It's like the type of movie that I never thought would get made. If I'm gonna be honest with you, I've never thought that a movie like this could get made, and if it was, I don't think it could have been done well. But I love that it did get made, and we had Denis Villeneuve direct it, and he's had a really good filmography. He made he did Arrival, and he also did Blade Runner 2049.
Oh, both of those movies I really loved, and they both looked absolutely fucking gorgeous.
Yeah, I remember watching Blade Runner 2049 in theaters, and there wasn't a lot of people in the theater when I watched it, which I usually prefer anyway, because I don't like getting distracted by other people. And because some people like have their phones out and they like take pictures of the screen, they forget to turn the flash off, whatever. Yeah, that's kind of why I don't really like going to the theater. But for this film, I saw it not expecting much because I liked the first movie. I didn't think they could do a sequel well, especially after like close to like 30 years later. And they did it. It was very well done. I really liked it. And I know a movie is really good. If I still think about the film 2 days after I watched it, yeah, it's a good film. And I thought about that movie like a week straight.
That's a good rule of thumb. Yeah, I will agree. I'm still thinking about Dune. I thought about Blade Runner for a while, and I really loved Arrival. So I definitely thought about that for a while. I thought about those creepy ass aliens for a long time. And actually, that was a film that I really did not mind. The hell's that man's name? The guy who plays Clint Barton in the MCU movies. Whatever the hell
I forgot his name.
His weird face. But yeah, that was like one of. I actually liked I enjoyed his performance in that. So yeah, I agree with you. Not that I knew that much about Dune, but everything that I knew about it or had heard about it was that trying to make it was a disaster.
Yes.
Every time they tried to do it, it was a disaster. And so I was really intrigued to see if they could competently make what I had always heard was impossible to make. And what I especially loved about it, after having heard that it was so complicated to follow, like your Lord of the Rings or your Song of Ice and Fire or whatever it is, they explained everything really well, even when they were doing it in exposition. It was all natural. And I get confused really easily. But I was following. I was following from the get-go. I knew what was happening, and I was really pleasantly surprised by that, and definitely appreciated it. And it was one of the reasons why I was able to sink so deeply into that world, because I didn't have to spend time figuring out what the fuck was going on. That was a plus, definitely.
And that's something in the book as well. Like Frank Herbert just throws you in. He doesn't really explain stuff. You had to find out along the way. And I'm really glad they like took the time subtly say like what's going on here. So like for example, the Holtzman shield, when like when Paul first turns it on, he like tests it like hitting the blade against his hand, and it does nothing. I mean, he slowly puts it and it turns red and he can touch it. I'm like, oh, okay, that's how that works. Great. And then in that same training scene, he says, oh, fast movements won't work against me. That's what Gurney says. I'm like, okay, that makes a lot more sense. So just like small stuff like that. They don't explain like, oh, the Holtzman shield is developed by Holtzman and fast guns don't work or whatever, blah, 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 blah. You get that just by watching the film, and they did a very good job with that. And I also learned from my studies, from my research that there were a couple of scenes that were cut from here that were like in the book, but they cut it from the movie just to make it flow better. So, for example, they knew there was a traitor among them, and they all thought it was the mom. They all thought it was her because, you know, she's like the most suspicious character because she's from like the shadows or whatever. And there was like there was a dinner scene, and they're like trying to be political and all that. It involved other houses. It was just like trying to figure out who the traitor was. But they cut that from the film and just made it a surprise. Now that was like a huge surprise for me because it was the doctor who betrayed them. Like, what?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I did not suspect.
He even told Paul, don't trust the Bene Gesserit because they had their own agenda. Like, bro, you betrayed the whole house.
Yeah. I mean, I get why he did it, but it was definitely a surprise. And then what did he get in the end? A big fat nothing. You know? That was especially sad.
That's what he gets for trusting the Harkonnen. They're brutal.
Yeah, exactly. But I did think it was really cool the way it was done, especially because it led to one of my favorite scenes in the movie, with the little tooth thing. So yeah, I'm glad they made that change because I think that the movie definitely, the pacing of the movie definitely deserved that. I feel like it just made things a lot cleaner and a lot clearer, and it just helped me stay invested to just get rid of all of that with it made a lot more sense that the Harkonnens would just operate in the shadows out of sight, and you don't know when they're going to strike, as opposed to, oh, let's search for the traitor or whatever. Yeah, no, makes sense. I like
Definitely. And yeah, they just watching this movie, you're like, yo, what is up with these guys? Because there was like that one dude who was hidden within the walls for like weeks. And almost killed Paul with that thing.
That was another one of my favorite scenes.
I was like, yo. And like, I don't blame them for missing that because who would do that? The Harkonnen, apparently.
Yeah, that just lets you know how freaking intense these guys are. That and that's another way of fleshing out their lore and backstory without having to do or say much. You understand these guys are a serious threat if they are willing to let one of their own dudes suffocate in the wall just to assassinate the son.
And that's something I learned from the Blu-ray special features. So whenever I can, I borrow the Blu-ray or DVD from the library and watch it, and also watch the special features. And they had the film books in there as well, because, you know, Paul has like the film books. They had their own version of film books and the special features, and they talked about the Harkonnen. They are the worst. Imagine Jeff Bezos, a satirical version of Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk together. They destroyed their own environment, their planet, to increase their profits. They don't care how many people die as long as their bottom line is met through. And that's why they're able to make so much money from the Arrakis, because he didn't care how many people they killed, didn't care how many people died during the production. As long as they had their spice, as long as they got the product, they were fine. So I was like, wow, okay, that says a lot there.
Yeah, wow. As shitty as that is, it's a really, really intriguing, intimidating enemy to have in a film series. And I know that, like I said, I don't know much about the original, but one of the things I do know is that they made the leader of the Harkonnens really kind of cartoony and wacky and like kind of just, you know, he had like red hair and just it was just like weird. But I loved the way they approached the creation of this particular house, because I was terrified of those guys. Like, and the way they did the doctor and just what's my baby's name? He plays the blue guy in the Guardians of the Galaxy. He was like
Dave Bautista.
Yeah. He was super, super intimidating. He wasn't even in it that much, but just like casting someone like him, great touch. Completely sells the brutality of the Harkonnens 100%.
So do you have any other thoughts on the film before I move on to the production?
I will say that as much as I enjoyed it and as much as I I will give all the props in the world for this being quite an achievement, deserves all its nominations, and it does. He does deserve a nomination as a director. However, I will say that just as a person of color, I notice trends in Hollywood films that I wish would go away. Like I'm really tired of like all the black people dying.
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
like really tired of like all the black and brown people like looking towards like this white savior from another place. Like, why can't the savior just come from them? Why can't Zendaya's character be the savior? Why do they need this boy that was bred to be a savior to come down and save them? But that is just my personal experiences as a person of color trying to enjoy genre films and television, and feeling either left out or knowing the moment I see a person with dark skin show up on screen that they're going to die eventually, and usually in service to the white character. I just want that to stop. Like the doctor's character, great character. I have no idea what happens to her character in the book, but it really fucking sucks that she showed up. She impressed me. I wanted to see more of her, and then she just fucking got killed. Same thing with the guy. They made us think that he was going to be Paul's mentor, and he got murdered by Paul. So it's like, okay, sure, those characters have to exist and those characters need to be cast. Why you gotta cast a black-skinned Negro? Why is it always gotta be the dark-skinned Negro that dies? You know, if maybe we could get past that, then this would be like a almost perfect film.
Yeah, and that's a valid criticism. That's the criticism behind this film as well, that you're not the only ones who have said that. Because some reviewers even criticized the film for pulling back from the Arabic and Islamic influences that Herbert had used within the novel, but still appropriating those elements.
Yeah.
And they even said like the original novel was considered to have some elements of the white savior narrative, and the lack of MENA representation that's Middle Eastern and North African North African people. When they asked Villeneuve about this, he said, and I quote, "It's a critique of that. It's not a celebration of a savior. It's a criticism of the idea of a savior, someone that will come and tell another population how to be, what to believe. It's not a condemnation, but a criticism. So that's the way I feel it's relevant, and that can be seen as contemporary." And I do remember that Paul's character wasn't comfortable with the idea of being their savior.
That's true.
He wasn't comfortable with that.
He wasn't.
And I also don't like the idea of like the savior of the people comes from like the ruling class. I've never liked that idea.
Yeah.
Never liked that.
Yeah, never mind them just being white, but like being of the ruling class. Yeah. And his response is, I feel, is reasonable. It isn't a condemnation. It is a critique. And if you can look at it that way, then brava. Some people are just like, well, I didn't make it for you. It's my movie. It's my vision, you know?
Yeah.
So at the very least, you know, he's the man is not an imbecile. I'm sure he is aware.
Yeah.
So that's good to hear.
Yeah, it's always good to hear about like people who are like self-aware essentially. It's always good to have that.
Yeah.
And as far as like production of the film, I want to talk a little bit of the background behind Dune itself. So shortly after its publication in 1965, Dune was identified for potential film prospects, and the rights to adapt the novel to film have been held by several producers since 1971. Attempts to make a film were made, and it was considered to be unfilmable owing to its breadth of content. And because of the book's status among fans, any deviation from the original material without strong justification has the potential to harm the film's reputation. I will say for myself, I never got into Dune because I know it's such a heavy read. And my boss told me that she read Dune, and then she got through part 1, and she was like done with part 1 in the book, the first book. And she's like, okay, I need to take a break from this. And I'm like, oh. Yeah, it's a heavy read. I know from hearing from other people, it can be a heavy read.
Yeah.
That's why I haven't really gotten into it. I might start reading it. Not anytime soon, though.
Yeah. Just like a really take your time kind of thing.
Yes. I'm trying to read more autobiographies. More biographies. I have one about Ulysses S. Grant, U.S. President, by Ron Chernow. He also wrote the book for Hamilton, which inspired the musical.
The play, yeah.
It's a thick book. Okay, it's really big, it's taken me quite a while just to get through a third of it because so much happened in this man's life.
Wow.
And we're in this book where I'm reading, we're still in the Civil War and hasn't gotten to his presidency yet. Yeah.
What? Damn. See? Yeah. I mean, they were making a country back then, so I guess most of them probably did live a great deal more than most of us back then because they were building everything.
Yeah, definitely. And Alejandro Jodorowsky, he acquired the rights in the 1970s to make an extravagant 14-hour adaptation of the book, but the project fell through. God. And this ever became the subject of the documentary film Jodorowsky's Dune, released in 2013. And that one has to do with like all the concept art that they made for that movie that was never released and is made into like an art book. David Lynch's Dune, which is the Dune that came out in the 1980s, was produced by Rafaela de Laurentiis in 1984 and was intended to be a 3-hour film, but it was cut to 137 minutes, and it was poorly received. And having seen a couple clips online, I think it was poorly received because it wasn't that good of a movie. It wasn't good. Yeah. Have you seen a couple of clips of that film?
I have. And damn, just hearing that they chopped it down that much from 3 hours of, no wonder it wasn't very good. That was probably a slop together mess. And David Lynch is fucking obscure at his best. Yes. So fucking, that's one of the reasons why I can't watch Twin Peaks. I'm sure it's wonderful, but David Lynch is weird. Okay, he's a freaking weird filmmaker. So yeah, I'm not surprised to hear that, but I have seen clips and it was strange. It was very David Lynchian.
I don't know why they chose David Lynch for that movie because he has such a weird filmography. I don't know how it would have translated to Dune.
Well, I'm guessing since Kyle MacLachlan is in it that they were trying to capture a moment. I'm assuming this is around the time Twin Peaks and all that stuff was at the height of its popularity. So I'm assuming that they were trying to get the trendiest, hottest, the most avant-garde director to direct this epic, space opera, and just did not know what the hell they were doing. Did not make the right choice at all.
Yeah, they could have gotten like James Cameron. Oh, actually, this is before James Cameron made a lot of fame with Terminator. Yeah. And I'm talking about just from the first movie, so probably wasn't his time for that. But then in 1996, the producer Richard P. Rubenstein acquired the rights to the novel. A live-action miniseries produced by Rubenstein, Frank Herbert's Dune, aired on the Sci-Fi Channel in the year 2000. It was a ratings hit and was generally better received than Lynch's film. Some reviewers criticized the miniseries for lacking the spectacle afforded to a feature film production and for staying too faithful to the book and being dragged down by exposition.
Yeah.
So, can't please these fans.
I mean, look, adapting something so dense is really difficult. It is really fucking difficult. And again, that just kind of lets you know just how brilliant the filmmakers were who made this, and just what an achievement it is. And I am really surprised that Villeneuve didn't get an Oscar nomination for his directing it.
It's so weird. Like one of the biggest snubs. Maybe
I'm just not up on the politics. I don't pay attention to that kind of stuff. But yeah, I do feel like that's kind of a snub.
It got nominated for almost everything else except for director. Strange. I don't know. Maybe pissed someone off. I don't know.
It's possible.
But yeah, so prospects to make a successful adaptation of Dune improved after the critical and commercial success of the film series adaptations of The Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter, both of which maintain most of the work's key characters and plots while managing the limited running time.
And I love The Lord of the Rings. I'm going to tell you something. Please do not judge me, but it's too late. I used to work at a movie theater like my first few years in New York, right when that series came out. And when the last film came out, I saw it 27 times.
27?
Yeah, I mean, it was free because I worked at the theater, so I would just go in there and watch it whenever I had 2.5 hours to kill.
Was this during work? I won't
It
judge
would
it if it was during work.
it depended. It depended. Like sometimes I would spend my lunch break in a theater, but sometimes like I would get to work early, or like I would just, go in there and finish watching one of the shows before I went home or something like that. It's one of the reasons why I started watching YouTube reaction channels when I was working at movie theaters, and I got really addicted to going into the theater to hear what how the audience would react, because I had already seen it and I knew what was going to happen, but they didn't know it was going to happen, so it was always kind of exciting. Like, ooh, how are they going to react to this scene? And I just was such a huge Lord of the Rings nerd that I wanted to go in there and like, ooh, what are you guys going to think of this scene? Even though I'd seen it like 100 times.
No, I get that. I like watching some like YouTuber reactions, like whenever say first time watching Rush Hour, and I'll go to like, what specific scene was it? Like, okay, here it is. Do you understand the words that come out of my mouth? And like they laugh, like, yeah, okay.
I can get with you guys. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like how I kind of like decide who to talk to. Like depending on like how they reacted to a certain scene, I'm like, okay, they seem like a good person to talk to, like a fun person. I don't know, for some reason I was addicted to watching people react to Squid Game, and there's like a specific episode. And
don't tell me.
Go to that.
Don't tell me.
No, I'm not gonna tell you what happened.
Okay.
I'm not gonna tell you the number. I'm not gonna tell you what happened.
Okay, good.
There's like a specific episode, and I always go to like this specific moment where something happens, and I'm addicted to seeing it because that's when people like freak out.
Flip out. Yeah. And that's why reaction channels are so popular now. I think it's that secondhand sort of thrill. It's like being able to feel what that or living sort of like vicariously through that other person to get that feeling again, to relive that feeling. Anyway,
part of it is like feeling like you're watching it with a friend again.
Yeah.
And part of it is like you see like you kind of relive the feeling you had when you've watched it for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so when it came to making Dune, so we're going back to Dune. Legendary Entertainment acquired the film and TV rights for Dune on November 21st, 2016. And Variety reported in December 2016 that director Denis Villeneuve was in talks with the studio to direct the film. Villeneuve expressed his interest in the project in September 2016, saying that, quote, "A long-standing dream of mine is to adapt Dune, but it's a long process to get the rights, and I don't think I will succeed," end quote. Villeneuve said that he felt he was not ready to direct a Dune movie until he had completed projects like Arrival and Blade Runner 2049, with his background in science fiction films. Brian Herbert, son of Frank and the author of the later books in Dune series, confirmed that Villeneuve would be directing the project in February 2017.
That's an interesting quote, and it makes me respect him because he obviously deliberately was like, nah, fam, no. That's my shit. I'm gonna wait until I have. And that's one of the things that most film studios and filmmakers don't do. They don't wait until it's right and it's good. They don't take their time to find the right person like that. They just rush so they can make the money. So I'm glad to hear that.
Definitely. I wouldn't necessarily say he doubted himself. He just said he didn't have the experience yet. And once he was ready, he'll be ready. And he became ready. He got ready.
Yeah, that's humble. That's fucking, you don't really hear many directors that humble.
No.
About their craft. Certainly not James Cameron.
So, some of Villeneuve's previous collaborators on the films of Arrival and or Blade Runner 2049, so like from both of these films, returned for Dune, including film editor Joe Walker, production designer Patrice Vermette, visual effects supervisor Paul Lambert, sound designer and editor Theo Green, sound editor Mark Bugini, and special effects supervisor Gerd Nefzer. A lot of talented people worked on this film, and I didn't know Roger Deakins wasn't on this movie because he worked on Blade Runner 2049. He's a great cinematographer. But Greg Fraser really brought it with this film as well. And Game of Thrones language creator David J. Peterson was confirmed to be developing languages for the film in April 2019. They brought a lot of talent.
Yeah, and when you have a team that's willing to follow you from project to project, especially a team that talented, it says something, man. Loyalty is, I don't know much. Let me stop pretending like I know how Hollywood operates, but but I believe that it is a very good sign when you can bring on board that caliber of talented people and they are loyal to you from production to production. That helps. That's how he was able to take what he did for Arrival and Blade Runner and elevate it for Dune. I don't, who knows what would have happened if he didn't have this exact team, but I certainly don't think it would have been the same. So
definitely, yeah. So which do you want to hear about first? Do you want to hear about the visual effects? Do you want to hear about the music, or do you want to hear about the fighting style?
Music. I love the music.
Okay, so music was composed by Hans Zimmer. The man. I'm gonna toot my own horn. I listen to his music a lot. I'm in the 1% of his listeners. I listen to his music the most for like on Spotify, like for like the past 6 years. That's what I listen to the most.
Nothing wrong with that.
Every year, it's always like, who was your number one artist you've listened to the most? Hans Zimmer. Every year.
Yeah, he's a really great artist. Everything I've heard from him, I've loved, and I definitely have a playlist on Spotify that's chock-a-block full of film scores, and his takes up most of it. So yeah, I know what you're talking about, man.
He's had a lot of work. So he worked on this movie instead of working with Christopher Nolan for Tenet, and he didn't want the soundtrack to sound like his previous works and use instruments atypical of Western orchestra, an approach that he called anti-groove. And let me look up the notes. So I also looked up the special features on the Blu-ray, and there was one like mini documentary about the music itself. And let me just look it up real quick. Yeah, so the special feature was called A New Soundscape. And here's what Denise said. In Dune, rhythm is everything. Rhythm is life. Rhythm is also death. Because, as they said in the movie, if you walk normally in the sand, you'll die because the sandworm will get you. So they developed the soundscape as they were shooting the film. And as Joe Walker, the editor, said, he was also developing the cut. So they were shooting the movie, and they were also developing the soundscape, and they were also cutting the movie as they were doing all that at the same time, which usually doesn't happen. Usually it's like in order, but they did it all at the same time for this.
Wow.
And I don't know why. I guess they're like particular about that.
It's interesting.
Very interesting indeed. And for the voice, they said the voice was a challenge. It had to sound natural and not like a synthesizer effect. They said, we came up with the idea of summoning the voices of their ancestors, which we brought out as he tried to summon his own voice.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's kind of like the voice of the ancestors commanding someone to like, give me the blade, give me the water, whatever.
That makes a lot of sense. I love that.
Mm-hmm. And they never felt comfortable with it until the last few days of the sound mix.
I actually also really kind of love that. I've never been on, big budget film productions, but working in advertising, I've definitely been on my share of productions, and the whole thing about scrambling you're a filmmaker, the whole scrambling to the last minute thing. But you also can arrive at some really, really awesome shit when you work like that. So I don't know. I am really fascinated by the film process. I'm also kind of a scatterbrain, so I'm easily overwhelmed by a lot of information. So that's probably one of the reasons why I didn't actually end up being in film, because I can't. My little world of YouTube videos is just enough for me. But I really appreciate hearing, and I'm just going to keep saying appreciate, because I just feel like that's just how I feel about these artists. A lot of fans these days I find are so demanding and entitled, and they're fans, but it's like nowadays people expect that being a fan of something means that you have some sort of control over how artists create their art, and I just don't think that's true. You could critique it, that's what art is for, but I don't know. Like for example, the whole thing with the way that they made the last episode of The Mandalorian. It was a glorious moment, but it was ruined by how people just critiqued the way that they did it. Like I'm talking about, I don't know if I'm going to spoil it, but Luke showed up. And it was ruined by the fact that people critiqued the way that it was done. It was like, damn, can't y'all just fucking appreciate the way it was done and understand that these people are working their fucking asses off? So just hearing how they played around with the way the voice was going to sound, and they played around with the soundscape that they were building, and they were playing around with this stuff up to the last minute, and they were able to produce something so beautiful. people who criticize, I don't have any time for you. I appreciate that shit. That's awesome.
Yeah. And also, I don't think people know how to criticize well these days.
True.
I know there are like a lot of educated film critics who will say like, I don't know how to describe it because I'm not very articulate with this, but they know how to critique a film because they have experience doing it. They know exactly what's going on with the film, what makes it work well, what doesn't make it work well. And it feels like the popular YouTube critique channels follow the format of those honest trailers of like the movies. I'm not sure, I forgot the name of the actual video, but they'll say like, oh, that's a close-up on his glasses, fail, or like something like that, even though it's intended to be a joke. Right. It's intended to be a joke, but I think that flew over a lot of people's heads, and they kind of like went extreme with it with their own versions of it. When you're saying about the Luke's part, there's like this channel, I think it's called Corridor Digital. They made their own version of that Luke scene, and they said they made it better than the actual scene in the show. And Mark Hamill even had to say, like, you guys did a very good job, but don't say you did it better than the production team. They worked really hard on that.
Yeah. It's just like a lot of people just kind of, even if they do understand how things work behind the scenes, it's just this world now where everybody thinks that their own experiences and their own opinions are all that matters. People have gotten seriously confused about what an opinion is. It is not a fact. An opinion is not a fact. It is your own personal taste. It is very subjective. So you know what I mean? Like, I just wish people will remember that sometimes. Just because you like it, that doesn't mean that this is factually a good product. Just because you dislike it, that doesn't mean that this is factually a not good product. It just means that you don't like it. And that's fine. But anyway, moving on, because I'll get on my soapbox, honey.
Yeah. I was going to say something else about No Way Home, but I was like, you know what? Best leave that alone for right now. That's another episode. That's a whole other episode for me. Let's get back to Hans Zimmer. He was trying to define a new musical language. And here's what he said. Whenever you come across science fiction movies, you'd hear overtly Western instruments, trumpets blaring away, and strings, and you go, did this culture really just do what our culture did and build violins and oboes? What's a French horn on Arrakis? And so, he spent a lot of time making the sounds, building the instruments, and getting people to learn how to play the instruments in a different way.
Jeez.
And the score was inspired by the wind, the sound of the wind on the sand, and the rhythm. He also said, if you surround yourself with incredibly brave, reckless, and talented people, they'll lead you into new directions automatically. And that's what he said about Denis Villeneuve. And that speaks to the whole film, just to the whole cast and crew of this movie. There's so many talented people that work on this movie. They were dedicated to it, and it had a very good leader who was leading the project, which was Denis Villeneuve. And if he's not going to win the Oscar, well, guess what? He's going to win the Jason, which is the Hit List Podcast Award.
To Jason.
I've always joked that, like, I've never approved of, like, the way the Academy Award will, like, nominate some people but not others, and how some people will win over others. And I'm like, you know what? They don't appreciate enough of these people. I'm going to make my own award.
You should.
All right? And I'm going to give them like a piece of paper that says, Jason Ramirez approves your film. You won this year.
You should totally do your own awards, though. That would be cool.
I will do that. I think that'll be something for season 5, like introducing like, what are the top 10 films of this year, top 10 directors, whatever. The Hit List Podcast Award, the 2022 Hit List Podcast Award. And I'll have my own Wikipedia page.
Why not, man? You know your shit. Everybody else is out there doing
it. If the Razzie Awards can exist, so can the Hit List Podcast Award. You heard it here first, folks.
The Razzies.
So what do I hear next? We have visual effects and the fighting styles.
Let's go for visuals because I'm going to save the best for last. We'll talk about the fighting styles last. So let's do visuals.
All right. So you know how we talked about blue screen and green screen?
Yeah.
For this film, they had sand screen.
What in the shit is that? What?
That's what I said. That's what I said. So sand screen is basically a huge screen that's like brown. That looks like the color of sand. And they use this because green screen and blue screen, they're using the same effect for green screen and blue screen because of the visual effects. But they found out when you put the film in negative mode, the sand screen was blue. And so it'll work well. It'll translate well into putting up these effects. So like there are scenes where it looks like they're in the desert. They're not in the desert. they're surrounded by sand screen, and he added visual effects to add to it. And so when the light reflects back onto the actors, it's not green or it's not blue, it's brown, reflecting the color of the environment.
That's clever shit. That is some clever shit.
And there's just so many things happening. I'm not even going to the wardrobe for this movie because this would be an even longer podcast episode to edit. The Baron had his own costume made, and I'm going to talk about this real quick. That took 7 hours to put on. The makeup and the outfit. 7 hours.
When?
I've heard 4 hours for some makeup, but that whole getup, 7 hours.
When did he even shoot? When did they shoot? When did he have to show up on set? Jesus Christ, man. Did the man sleep? I mean, I guess he could sleep while they was shoving him into that plastic sock.
They have these things where like they put like little like sticks in the nose so they can still breathe. But they look so thin. They look like noodles, like spaghetti noodles. And I don't know how they can do that because, like, I'm not sure about other people, but one of my nostrils is like more narrow than the other, so I breathe more from one nostril. So I'm like, how do you not panic when your full face, your full head is all in that except for your nose?
That's mind over matter, man. That takes practice, and he probably had to like meditate and take some Valium or some Xanax or something. Who knows?
Definitely.
Why actors do what they do.
I know for Jim Carrey, when he did The Grinch, they called in a specialist from the CIA, a torture specialist, telling him how to withstand torture. And one of the things they were able to do is like smoke cigarettes. That's how he's able to like withstand the amounts of like makeup on him.
Interesting.
But yeah, for visual effects, just the sandworm itself and like the other visual effects happening. I will say the ornithopter. I'm going to say helicopter, their own helicopter. So their helicopter, it doesn't look like anything we've seen in real life. It flaps its wings like a dragonfly. It looks like a dragonfly, and it flaps its wings like a dragonfly / hummingbird. And the way they shot it, they had actual helicopters in some scenes, because the way like the wind blows in helicopters, you can't really, if you want to recreate that, it's going to be really hard to do it. So they had helicopters, they're doing some scenes, and they replaced it visually with the ornithopter. And that's why it looked like those things were real, because there were actual helicopters in the desert. They just replaced it with that science fiction machine.
Another thing that like it just looked real. I just completely accepted it.
It's a combination of like practical and visual effects that they were able to blend it very well. They spent months on the sandworm, not just designing it, but also understanding the physics of what a worm that size, how it would move through sand, and how the sand would look like when it would emerge from the sand. So they studied real-world desert camouflage creatures to understand how they would interact with their own environments, and they tried to apply some of those lessons to how the sandworm might function. The worm is supposed to look like a survivor of the ages, and have that prehistoric quality to it, and it scales in a rough skin that has been grinded by the sand for centuries. And they spent months understanding how a worm of that size would move through a huge field of sand and find a balance between artistic goals and what the real world mechanics would be. So that's the stuff they worked on for this, to make sure see like what looks real, what looks more artistic, and finding the balance between those two. And here's the thing I didn't know when I watched the movie, but the Fremen view the sandworm kind of like a god. You notice this in the music changing as well. When Paul first sees the sandworm in its huge magnificence, whatever, they change the music. It's not just a man seeing a beast, it's a man seeing God.
That makes sense, because the sandworm does remind me of a sort of a Lovecraftian, like ancient being that, was here long before us and will be here long after us. So yeah, that makes sense. And actually, when the lady, the doctor that I liked, when she died, she said something that kind of clued me into that. She was saying that she only worships one God. And when she like kind of thumped the ground, it indicated to me that it was the worm, which I thought was interesting. So good to know. Look at you with the little facts and informationals.
I wish there was the commentary track, but they had over an hour of special features on the Blu-ray. So
man,
I didn't expect to watch all of it in one sitting, but I watched all of it.
It's fascinating. I love that kind of shit.
So let's talk about the fighting styles in this film. So there are actual fighting styles inspired from real life that were used in the Dune movie. So martial arts trainer and stunt coordinator Roger Ewan was in charge of adapting Dune's combat styles for the movie. He also worked with the cast in guiding the martial arts training that they did to prepare for the roles. And quick fun fact about him, he also came from like poverty in his background, and so he wanted to do martial arts when he was a kid, but his parents couldn't afford it. And so he would like watch TV and learn from books. And it wasn't until he was like 18 or 19 that he was able to like pay for his own martial arts education. He moved to Hollywood, and the first studio he walked in was Chuck Norris's studio, and he trained under Chuck Norris.
Chuck Norris.
Yeah, he was starstruck because he's seen him in that one Bruce Lee movie, and he knew about his work. And yeah, he trained under Chuck Norris, and I was like, wow, that's an interesting life story right there.
Chuck Norris was a good fighter, man.
Mm-hmm. So here's how he says he breaks down like the vision of the various fighting styles in the film in an interview with Kung Fu Kingdom, which is a website that's dedicated to martial arts. So I love that name, Kung Fu Kingdom. So he said, designing the specific fighting styles for the Emperor's Guard, the Sardaukar, the Atreides, and the Harkonnens were basically the first three things that we focused on in this first film. For the Atreides, because their weapons are a bit like a shorter sword, I use more Filipino styles of Kali and Eskrima. The Sardaukar are more of a group, like a cross between Viking berserkers and the samurai. Finally, the Harkonnens, because of their bestial and sadistic quality, I liken more to the barbarians of old, like maybe Genghis Khan and the Mongols, even in the way that they move. They're efficient, but they're not very precise or stylized. The Atreides are very precise, and they have techniques that work specifically for the weapons that they use. These are the three kinds of systems that we wanted to identify, and that will hopefully give the audience something pleasing to look at and something to take away from.
Yeah, and I can see the differences in their styles too. And of course, the House Atreides style is like badass as fuck. It actually.
Yeah. It's.
I was like, okay, little Timothy Chalamet, I'm appreciating your style, bro.
Yeah, and there's this a series of videos from the New York Times called Anatomy of a Scene, where directors will come in and dissect their scenes. Denis Villeneuve did one for like the training sequence, and he said it's inspired by Balintawak Eskrima, also known as Balintawak Arnis, which is a Filipino martial arts style developed in the 1950s. And the fighting style involves blocking opponents' attacks using both a weapon and a free hand. He said, quote, "It's closer to a chess game than a fighting sequence. When you fight someone with a shield, which is like the Holtzman shield that they have, the idea is to distract them with moves in advance. You want to distract them with a specific move so you can slowly bring the blades into their body. It's a totally different way of fighting. It's a way of fighting that is very fast, like a chess game."
So when Paul was doing all that pop, 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 pop with the guy, and he was like, "Are you toying with me?" It was like, I was like, yeah, because you obviously can't stop him.
And after like training some martial arts back in community college, a little bit after that, I will say when I will watch movies, I'll be like, wait a minute, did they just do the Heaven 6? Which is like doing like something like that.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, they did.
I'm glad you know your stuff, Joe.
So yeah, it's just saying like once you like know some stuff, you like see like, oh, I see it everywhere now. So you'll see it in places like Arnis specifically. You see it in Mission Impossible 3, Resident Evil Apocalypse, in the Bourne series, and even in Disney's Raya and the Last Dragon, which is like Southeast Asian inspired film.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's a good movie.
I haven't seen it yet, but I have seen like that one fight scene. I don't know between what two characters because I haven't seen it yet. But I was like, oh, okay,
yeah, it's a good movie.
It's a good fight scene.
I was surprised. I was actually surprised.
And filming during the COVID-19 pandemic, he said it was very difficult because it was like from like the start of it, you know, 2020, 2 years ago. We're coming up with the anniversary again. He said, by the way, Dune was the very first film in America to come back into production right after lockdown with COVID protocols in place. We were the test case, essentially the lab rats. We will be tested 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and we had to make sure everybody was locked down in quarantine and not going out. And so the first week of production, we went back to 8711. They do fight choreography for other Hollywood films. He said, we went back to 8711 into previous rehearsal and training with new notes of what Denis wanted. We had to prep the main piece, which was a fight sequence featuring Paul Atreides. Denis was in Montreal watching everything on camera. Basically, we will shoot everything, and it would all go back to Denis. And when he says about like doing action choreography, he says, I would hope to introduce first and foremost to take into consideration, does it serve the story? And does it serve the character in line with his concept and his vision? It wasn't about how flashy I could make a starting fight sequence or an actor look, but rather how frenetic, eye-catching, and believable we could make this piece of action.
Nice.
So that's just his philosophy into the fight choreography.
Nice. Very nice.
And when he trained the actors, Brolin had a little difficulty learning his stuff, but eventually he was able to do it. And Timothée Chalamet, it was easier for him because he has some Taekwondo experience and he has dancing experience, which translates very well into fight choreography.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because like having trained both martial arts and fight choreography, I will say it's easier for a dancer to learn fight choreography than for martial artists for to learn fight choreography, because my instinct was to hit the person, actually hit the person. But I'm like, no, I can't. And then I like hesitate, like, no, I can't do that. I can't do that. Like, Jason just finished. You have to move back as you do the fist, Jason. Like, I can't do it.
It's a dance. It's a dance. Yeah.
And then once I realized it's the dance, I was like, oh, okay. Well, I don't have any dancing experience, so I need to learn some dancing experience. So I want to finish with like Dune Part 2. So it's been confirmed that the scheduled release date for Dune Part 2 is going to be October 20th, 2023.
Wow.
Hopefully it doesn't move anymore, because Dune was supposed to come out in 2020, but they moved it because of the pandemic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so 2023.
I was gonna say that's fast, but if it's already been delayed, then they've probably been working on it. So good, because I want to see it.
So I want to see it too. Like what you said first about like the casting and like how like the white savior part of the film, I also wasn't a fan of. The other part was how it ended. Like I was like, okay, we're here, and what? Oh, this is only the beginning. No, this is the end. The end of part 1.
No,
Zendaya,
man.
what?
Lord of the Rings should have trained us for that, child. You gotta wait. You gotta wait till the next movie. It was 2.5 hours. I had a feeling of, and especially that's just the way Hollywood seems to operate these days. It's like, why make money off one when you can break that shit up? That's what they did to The Hobbit, which was a tragic mistake. But I obviously don't think it's a mistake here. I think that it deserves more time. It deserves another 2.5 hour movie, frankly, because I'm highly invested in this world, which I keep saying this, but it's true. And it's one of the reasons I chose these 2 films. I did not expect this. I did not expect it. And it's one of the reasons why it's one of my favorite movies of the year, because I was so surprised by it.
Real quick, so when you emailed me your 2 choices, Spencer and Dune, that same day I saw on Letterboxd, which is after you sent me the email. You know about Letterboxd, right?
No, what's up with that?
Yeah, Letterboxd is like a social media site. Think like IMDb, but social media, so people will post their own reviews of movies.
Oh, okay. Oh.
I think that's the same list I sent you, like past films.
Oh, that's what that is. Okay.
So there's this list that was made because people can make their own list of like favorite films. This list is called 2021 Films in which a young member of the royal family chafes against their constraints and experiences strange visions, all while trying to avoid massive parasites that threaten to destroy them all. Guess which 2 films are on there?
What?
Dune and Spencer.
That's hilarious.
I didn't get it when I first saw this. I have no idea what's going on. Strange visions, what? And now seeing this movie, it makes sense. It makes sense.
That's hilarious. I love that. And what a category.
This list was published 3 months ago. So before we haven't even had a conversation together. So
I gotta get on this Letterboxd thing. I'm so old and out of the loop.
It's okay. It's something I trust more than other places like Rotten Tomatoes, because I'll read reviews by people. They go into you can go as short as you want, you can go as detailed as you want, but there are people who really say what they liked about the movie, inspiration, whatever. And so I really trust it, except for a film that's very popular, like No Way Home. That's the most reviewed film in the website.
Those reviews are just based on euphoria. That's what that is. That's what all that is euphoria, child. They got their little childhood dreams came true. So of course it was amazing. It was amazing. Best movie of the year.
So that concludes our conversation today. Thank you so much, Kendra, for being here. I really appreciate you talking to me about Spencer and Dune. These were actually your choices of films, and I'm very glad we got to see them and talk about them.
Yay! Thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun. I really love talking about movies, especially with people who know what the hell they're talking about.
Same here. I like talking about movies too. Let me ask you, were the movies a hit or a miss with you?
They were both hits. Both of them. I really liked them, and I was prepared for them to be misses, honestly. But yeah, they were both hits. I would say go see them wherever you can get them.
Yeah, definitely. I had to say the same thing as well. I didn't expect to like Spencer as much as I do now.
Mm-hmm.
And Dune, I'll say this, I also had the same thing. Like, someone on Twitter said this, like, I'll tell you what, that twerp grew on me. And that twerp is referring to Timothée Chalamet.
Yes, sir. That's exactly. Yeah. I 100% agree with that. Little old Timothée Chalamet.
They're both hits for me, and I think I'll see them again sooner rather than later. So where can we find you on social media?
Not that I'm very good at it, but sure, if you want to follow me, I'm on Instagram and Twitter under BBlueTube, and I try to post as often as I can, but that's not usually very often. But I'm there. I'm so there, right there with you. So meet me.
And your YouTube channel?
It is Black and Blue Tube Sentence Case on YouTube. It's just me looking dumb, watching MCU and Marvel stuff, but also getting into more serious film and TV reviews. So be on the lookout.
Awesome. So that's it for today, folks. You've been listening to the Hit List Podcast. My name is Jason, and until next time, cross off a new film from your list. Thank you for listening to the Hit List Podcast. If you liked this episode, please consider giving us 5 stars and leaving a review. It really does help. You can also follow us on Facebook at The Hit List Podcast and Instagram at _hitlist_podcast.